It's wonderful to be here with you this afternoon and see such a wonderful turnout for religious liberty in the city of brotherly love. We gather today at one of America's great temples of liberty, Independence Hall, right behind you all, right in front of me, where our founders produced and signed both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. The first of those great documents proclaimed in 1776 that in keeping with the laws of nature and of nature's God, the Declaration's language, America would take its place among the nations of the world. But it would do so as the first nation in history, founded on the recognition, on the belief that, in its words again, it is self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Later appealing to God as the, quote, supreme judge of the world, and praying for the, quote, protection of divine providence, the authors of our national independence clearly understood freedom and faith to be allies and not enemies of one another. 11 years later, in this same place, the framers of the Constitution created a government that established no official church, interfered with no one's freedom of religion, and clearly ruled out any invasions of individual conscience as a test for office holding. But they did not include a Bill of Rights in that original document. Leading framers such as James Madison thought a list of rights in the Constitution was unnecessary, that our great religious diversity would be freedom's best guardian. But believing in the end that he had been mistaken about this, and that reassuring his fellow Americans was worth some effort, James Madison himself stood on the floor of the House of Representatives in New York City, then the capital, on this day, June 8th in 1789, to propose the amendments that we now know as the Bill of Rights. At the very head of Madison's list of rights, as the very first freedom, was religious liberty, or what Madison called the full and equal rights of conscience. That's an immortal phrase of his. It is the first freedom because it is bound up with our highest duties. This was a principle for which James Madison had already fought a few years earlier in Virginia in a famous document you can find many places online and in books called the Memorial and Remonstrance, a document addressed to the state legislature of Virginia, 1785. In that great memorial, Madison argued that, quote, the religion of every man must be left to the conviction and conscience of every man, because only the evidence contemplated by their own minds, not the dictates of other people holding power, can lead human beings to do their duty towards the Creator in a meaningful way. As the great 19th century English churchman John Henry Newman would later say, conscience has rights because it has duties. But the American statesman James Madison said it first. What was first on Madison's list of rights became the first freedom in our First Amendment, a guarantee that the government will not intrude in the affairs of churches and will attack no one conscientiously pursuing his duty to the Creator as he understands it. Is this still the first freedom in the American credo of liberty? Is it? For those of us gathered here, the answer is clearly yes. But we are gathered in this place on this anniversary because we can no longer be sure that some of those in power in Washington would give the same answer. The nation's Catholic bishops and their many allies of many different faiths, and some people of none at all, are now accused of partisanship because they have the courage to push back in public and in courts of law against an aggressive government that presumes to tell them which of their institutions and who among their flock are authentically religious, and which have to fit themselves into a box designed by policymakers who are heedless of their claims of conscience. But religious liberty knows no party. It is not the possession of Republicans or Democrats any more than religion itself is. People of faith people who for the best of reasons should be alert to the necessity of religious freedom, can be found on every side of every issue. Fiscal policy, crime and punishment, immigration, war, even the hotly contested social issues of abortion and same-sex marriage. But liberty, freedom of every kind, including religious freedom, is always threatened whenever government becomes more powerful in directing the course of our lives. The temptations of power are strong for anyone. When people of faith hold the reins of an increasingly powerful government, they are no more immune to such temptations than is anyone else. So when President Obama asks how he, who is a religious man himself, can be accused of hostility to religious freedom, I don't doubt he is mystified by the accusation. But that does not mean it is an unjust one. The President is the architect of the greatest increase in governmental power over the lives of individual Americans since the New Deal, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, signed into law 2 years ago. That's the law that enabled HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius to decree that except for the most narrowly defined religious employers, every employer in the country will have to pay for insurance that covers free contraception, abortifacients, and sterilization procedures. That includes religious schools, hospitals, colleges, charities, and social service agencies. It includes countless conscientious men and women running private businesses, large and small. And the administration's so-called accommodation is so far just a promise to talk some more about this after the November election. A promise we have reason to doubt they will remember afterward. The President and the Secretary evidently see no merit in anyone's moral opposition to contraception, sterilization, or abortion. These things are great public goods to President Obama and Secretary Sebelius. And really, that's no surprise. What is shocking, what is truly shocking, is they think it is therefore the most natural thing in the world to transform these things into universal private goods that we, in our businesses, our schools, our hospitals, and our great religious charities must enshrine and sponsor, regardless of any claims of conscience that pull us in another direction. In other words, they seem to think that the freedom of our conscience depends on whether their conscience would arrive at the same judgment. But that isn't how freedom of conscience works. And if they paid a little more attention to founding fathers like James Madison, they might understand this. But no, since they cannot conceive of moral or religious opposition to these alleged goods on the part of any rational persons, there is no principled reason in their view to make room for claims of religious freedom. Contraception and abortion are for them non-negotiable universal goods. Other people's religious freedom, that's negotiable. So it seems is the definition of a religious institution. But this is not the American understanding of religious freedom. Indeed, it is like no understanding of religious freedom ever seen anywhere. It is a view of the world from inside a mindset where the category of religious freedom seems simply to be missing altogether. That fact makes this a singularly dangerous moment in American history. If our struggles over religious freedom with the current administration turn out badly, if the claims of conscience can be overridden on such flimsy pretexts as preventive health care, then we will experience a setback from which it may take years to recover. But again, we can take heart that long ago, James Madison understood our situation. In that famous document I quoted a moment ago, the Memorial and Remonstrance of 1785, he wrote that, quote, "It is proper to take alarm at the first experiment on our liberties. We hold this prudent jealousy to be the first duty of citizens and one of the noblest characteristics of the American Revolution." He went on, "The free men of America did not wait till usurped power had strengthened itself by exercise and entangled the question in precedents. They saw all the consequences in the principle, and they avoided the consequences by denying the principle." That's James Madison. So too must we deny the principle that the government has any rightful power to intrude on our consciences, as individuals and as religious communities, and reaffirm that religious liberty is the first of our freedoms on which all the rest depend. This much we owe as our duty to the Creator who made us free men and women, responsible to Him. Thank you.